I still remember the moment my phone rang. It was just an ordinary afternoon. And then suddenly everything changed. The number on the screen looked official, but the voice on the other end felt wrong. Too calm, too serious. There was a strange pause before they spoke, like they were choosing their words carefully. Is this the owner of the property on Riverline Avenue? My heart skipped. Yes, why? Another pause. A longer one this time. And then the sentence that made my stomach drop. We need to talk about your property. It's not yours anymore. For a second I couldn't breathe. Thought I misheard them. Not mine. What did that even mean? Confusion hit first. Then fear. Then the shock that froze me in place. Something was terribly wrong. And deep down I knew this wasn't a mistake. Someone had done this. Someone close. My mind kept replaying those words. Your property, it's not yours anymore. Just like that. My $980,000 property was gone in seconds. I didn't understand how something I worked for my entire life could disappear overnight. But the more I listened, the clearer it became. This wasn't an accident, and it wasn't bad luck. Someone had planned this. Someone close. Very close. Close enough to know every detail of my life. Every weakness. Every opportunity. And while they thought I would panic, break down, or stay silent, they didn't know me well enough. What they didn't expect was that my revenge wouldn't be loud or violent. It would be quiet. And absolutely devastating. That property wasn't just a building to me. It was years of saving every extra rupee I had. Years of saying no to things everyone else enjoyed. While my friends went on trips, I stayed home. While others spent freely, I worked a second job. Late nights, early mornings, just to add a little more to my savings. Weekends that should have been for rest were spent planning, budgeting, and dreaming. That property represented everything I wanted in life. Security, stability, and most of all, independence. It was proof that I could stand on my own feet without relying on anyone. Every brick, every corner felt like a part of my story. This wasn't just real estate. This was my identity. The result of every sacrifice I had made. And that's why losing it hurt in a way I can't even describe. Looking back now, the signs were always there. Small moments that felt harmless at the time but make perfect sense today. There was this quiet tension in the family, the kind you don't notice until it's too late. Little comments about my success. Questions about how much I earned. Remarks like, "You're doing well, maybe too well." They smiled on the surface, but their eyes told a different story. A mix of jealousy and curiosity that never felt right. Sometimes they would ask about the property. Who handled the paperwork? Where I kept the documents? Why I chose that location? Back then, I thought they were just being supportive. I had no idea those questions were seeds. Quietly planted, quietly growing. They acted concerned. They acted helpful. But their interest wasn't love. It was control. And every small warning I ignored would soon become the reason everything fell apart. The day everything collapsed started like any other. Nothing felt strange, until my phone buzzed with that unknown number. I answered without thinking. The voice on the other end sounded official but tense, like they were delivering news no one ever wants to hear. "Is this the owner of the property on Riverline Avenue?" they asked. My heart picked up a little. "Yes, this is me." Then came a long, uncomfortable silence. I could hear papers shuffling. A quiet sigh. And then their tone changed completely. "We need to verify something. There have been changes in the ownership documents." My mind went blank. Changes? What changes? I hadn't signed anything. I hadn't agreed to anything. I felt panic slowly rising in my chest as they continued. "We were told you approved this transfer." Transfer? I never approved anything. I never even heard of it. My voice cracked as I said, "What transfer? Who approved it?" But deep inside, a cold realization started forming. This mess wasn't random. Someone had done something behind my back. Someone who knew enough to pull this off. I rushed to the property office the moment the call ended. My hands were shaking the entire way there. I kept telling myself it had to be a mistake. A typo, a system error, anything but the truth I feared. But the moment they placed the file in front of me, I felt my stomach twist. There was my signature. Except it wasn't mine. The curves were wrong. The pressure was different. Even my own name looked like a stranger had written it. Page after page showed things I had never agreed to, documents I had never seen, permissions I had never given. and decisions that stripped me of everything I owned. I asked, "Who submitted these?" The officer simply pointed to a name on the final page. My heart dropped. It was someone I knew. Someone I trusted enough to let near my life, near my records, near my home. I felt the room spinning as the truth settled in. This wasn't an accident. This was planned. Carefully. Quietly. By someone who knew exactly what they were doing. They didn't just sign my name. They tried to erase me. I walked out of that office feeling like the ground had disappeared beneath me. For the first time in years, I felt completely powerless. I tried to speak, tried to make sense of everything. But my voice just wouldn't come out. It was as if all the years of hard work, all the dreams, were slipping straight through my fingers. That night I couldn't sleep. I kept staring at the ceiling, replaying every moment with that person. Every conversation, every smile, every time I trusted them without a second thought. And the more I remembered, the more the betrayal cut deeper. I felt embarrassed for being so blind. Angry at myself for ignoring the signs. And exhausted. So exhausted that I wondered if fighting back was even worth it. There was a moment where I almost accepted defeat. Where I told myself, maybe this is it. Maybe I've lost everything. But somewhere in the middle of that darkness, a different thought slowly formed. Not loud. Not dramatic. Just a quiet, steady realization. If they could plan something this cruel, then I could plan something smarter. And that was the moment I stopped breaking. And started rebuilding. The next morning something in me had changed. The fear was still there, but it wasn't controlling me anymore. The shock had settled, and in its place came a quiet clarity. I realized I didn't need to shout, argue, or confront anyone. I needed to think. I needed to be smarter than the person who tried to destroy me. So I started with the basics. Every document, every file, every signature. I went through them one by one, slowly, carefully, looking for anything that didn't add up. And the deeper I looked, the clearer the truth became. Their lies weren't perfect. Their paperwork wasn't flawless. Their greed had made them sloppy. I reached out to people who actually knew what they were doing. Lawyers, advisors, experts. I explained everything step by step. And for the first time, someone said the words I desperately needed to hear. We can fight this. Those 3 words felt like oxygen. From that point on, I moved quietly. I didn't tell anyone what I was doing. I didn't warn the person who betrayed me. I didn't give them a single hint. I collected proof, recorded details, saved every message, and built a timeline of every shady move they had made. With every piece of evidence, I felt the power slowly returning to my hands. This wasn't a loud comeback. It wasn't dramatic or emotional. It was calm, controlled, and precise. And little did they know, the revenge I was building would hit them harder than anything they imagined. As the evidence piled up, something became painfully clear. The person who tried to steal my property had outsmarted themselves. Their forged documents, their secret meetings, their hidden transactions, all the things they thought would protect them, were actually the same things that would expose them. Every signature they faked, every lie they put on paper, every detail they tried to cover up, it all became proof. Solid, undeniable proof. My lawyer laid it out perfectly. They created the trap. All you have to do is let them walk into it. So that's exactly what I did. Quietly. Patiently. I waited. We didn't accuse them. We didn't confront them. We simply asked the right questions at the right time. Questions they couldn't answer without revealing their own lies. And little by little, they started exposing themselves. A wrong date here. A mismatched signature there. A statement that contradicted another. They didn't even realize that every word they spoke, every document they touched, was tightening the rope around their own neck. They wanted to play a clever game, but they forgot that the truth doesn't bend forever. And now, their perfect plan was starting to fall apart. Piece by piece. The day finally came when everything was ready. I didn't storm into their life screaming. I didn't throw accusations or demand apologies. I didn't need to. I let the facts do the talking. When I served the legal notice, their face changed immediately. But confusion. Panic. You reported me? They stammered, unable to hide the fear in their voice. I stayed calm. Controlled. I didn't take revenge, I said quietly. I simply told the truth. Every lie they had tried to cover up was now exposed on paper. Every manipulation, every forged signature, every detail they tried to cover up, it all became proof. Solid, undeniable proof. My lawyer laid it out perfectly. They created the trap. All you have to do is let them walk into it. So that's exactly what I did. Quietly. Patiently. I waited. We didn't accuse them. We didn't confront them. We simply asked the right questions. Every life they had tried to cover up was now exposed on paper. Every manipulation, every forged signature, every hidden action. All laid bare. For the first time they realized the full scale of what they had done. Their arrogance, their overconfidence, their years of scheming had failed. And I watched as the mask they wore for so long slowly crumbled. No yelling. No drama. Just facts. Quiet. Unstoppable. It was a confrontation they couldn't argue with. A reckoning they couldn't escape. A few weeks later, the final decision came. The property was returned to me. Every brick, every corner, every paper, exactly as it should have been. But the victory wasn't just about reclaiming what was mine. It was about watching the person who betrayed me face the consequences they had tried so hard to avoid. Their forged documents and lies had not only failed, they had become evidence of their own undoing. I didn't celebrate loudly and I didn't gloat. Instead, I let the quiet justice speak for itself. They lost more than just access to the property. Their reputation, their credibility, and their influence within the family were shattered. It was a turn they never saw coming. The same greed that gave them confidence became the reason for their downfall. And I realized then that revenge doesn't need anger. It only needs truth. The revenge wasn't dramatic. It didn't need to be. It was quiet, precise, and absolutely devastating. They had thought they could take everything from me without consequences. They believed their manipulation was flawless, their plan unstoppable. But every step they took to control my life, every lie they planted, became a trap they fell into themselves. I didn't yell. I didn't threaten. I let the system and the evidence do the work for me. The moment they realized their actions had exposed them completely, the shock and panic in their eyes was all the revenge I needed. They lost not just the property, but trust, credibility, and respect. The same arrogance they relied on crumbled into nothing. And I learned the most powerful kind of revenge is silent. Calculated, legal, and unavoidable. They tried to destroy me, but in the end I was the one standing tall. When the dust finally settled, I realized something important. I didn't need an apology and I didn't need anyone to admit they were wrong. The property was back in my name. But more importantly, I had reclaimed my peace, my confidence, and my boundaries. I learned that trust isn't given, it's earned. And some people, no matter how close they seem, will never respect it. I focused on rebuilding my life, strengthening what truly mattered, and surrounding myself with people who valued honesty and loyalty. The betrayal left scars, yes, but it also gave clarity. I no longer feared losing what I had worked for, because I had learned how to protect myself, legally and emotionally. And every time I step onto that property, I don't just see a house. I see resilience, wisdom, and a life I fought to reclaim. I was whole again, without needing anyone's approval. Looking back, the whole experience taught me lessons I'll never forget. First, never ignore the small warning signs. The little doubts, the subtle questions, the unusual interest in your life. Those are often the earliest signs of betrayal. Second, protect what's yours both legally and emotionally. Documents, agreements, boundaries, they aren't just paper, they're shields. Third, revenge doesn't have to be loud or angry. It can be quiet, calculated, and unstoppable. Sometimes the best way to respond is not with emotion, but with patience, strategy, and truth. And finally, family or friends aren't always defined by blood or familiarity. They're defined by loyalty, honesty, and respect. If someone consistently disrespects that, it's not weakness to step back. It's wisdom. One phone call tried to take everything from me, but it ended up teaching me how to take my life back stronger than ever. Even now, I can't forget that phone call, the one that started it all. It was terrifying, confusing, and life-changing. For a moment, I thought my world had ended, that everything I worked for was gone forever. But that single moment also became the turning point. It forced me to see the truth about people, to recognize betrayal, and to realize my own strength. It showed me that even when someone tries to destroy you, you can rise, fight back, and reclaim what is rightfully yours. I learned that patience, strategy, and clarity are more powerful than anger or revenge. The person who tried to take my property thought they had control. They were wrong. In the end, one phone call didn't just change my property. It changed me. It made me smarter, stronger, and unshakable.